Presentation today where we're going to explore the benefits of Sage HRMS for the Sage 300 CRE payroll. So I hope everyone can hear me well. If not, you can go ahead and let me know in the chat box. If you have any questions, you can also put those in the questions area and your GoToMeeting panel that should be on the right-hand side of your screen. And you can type any questions and we'll address those as we go along. And we'll also save some time at the end of our presentation today to answer any additional questions. But right now, everyone's been placed on mute, so we'll go ahead and get going. So our introductions, I'll tell you a little bit about our organization and some of the reasons we've partnered with Alliance. And then we'll get into the Sage HRMS, and we'll talk about some of those common challenges that we hear from clients who are using the Sage 300 CRE payroll without the HR component. And then we'll talk about, of course, the benefits of adding that component. And then we'll look at the integration between the two products and how the data flows over. Okay. So a little bit about our organization, Delphia Consulting. We're a long-time Sage HRMS business partner. That is our primary focus, employee-based software systems. We actually have the most certified consultants doing the Sage HRMS product in North America. And our staff is made up of human resource and payroll professionals as well as CPAs, database engineers, Microsoft certified engineers. Myself, I'm a former payroll manager who learned HR after the organization that I was working for bought a Sage HRMS system at that time. So I've sat in the HR desk and the payroll side of the house for a long time, and now I've been working as a sales consultant reselling the product for approximately 9 years. So I really like the product. If you have some questions about real world use of it, we're happy to discuss that with you. So a little bit about the Sage HRMS products. It was initially developed back in the mid-'80s, and at that time it was called Abracadabra, if you could believe it or not. And it was really the first HRMS system, so human resource management system, that was developed by HR professionals to meet the specific needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Up until that point, we really only saw HR components in very large ERP systems, and a lot of times those were relegated to just a few fields for that HR data out there. So, you know, fast forward now, and the landscape's really changed. There are many, many systems out there, but, you know, how many of them are really going to be there in the next 10, 20, or 30 years out there? So this is one of the benefits of looking at a Sage component for the HR needs for your organization. Is part of the Sage organization. They're going to be around for a long time. The system has continued to evolve and innovate, supporting the changing needs of HR professionals, you know, throughout the employee life cycle. So that's hire to retire, and in many construction organizations, that's hire, layoff, rehire, etc. So the core of this system is the centralized HRMS database, and there's many other modules available depending on what issues your organization is looking to resolve. One of the beauties of the Sage HRMS system is that you purchase what you need when you need it. So if you don't need a recruiting component right now, you don't have to purchase it. Yet if your situation changes in 5 years, you have that option of adding that in and having the integration in there. Likewise for the self-service components and paperless solutions out there as well. So in the time that I've worked with this system over the last 9 years, and I've talked to other HR professionals that are in the construction and real estate industry, I've heard kind of a reoccurring theme out here. So these are really what I find to be very common for Timberline payroll users to be having issues with and looking for some resolution out there. So we're going to take a dive into each one of these components. And I promise we're going to look at the products. We'll go back and forth between the product and our PowerPoint slides and the points we want to make here. So the first area that I have heard concern about is really having that complete employee information. Everything from, like I said, hire or onboarding process down to termination and then rehire. So we need to make sure that we're collecting all of the necessary documents for these employees, that we've had them acknowledge off on our policies and procedures, and we're getting the information we need over to the payroll as well. We also want to be able to make changes to our data and have a complete history record out there. So everything from wage increases or changes, transfers, promotions, all of that. And so now we're going to take our first look into the SAGE system. And I have just a little bit of a caveat here. So, you know, I'm running a demonstration system here today. I've got it configured in a way that makes sense to be able to display information out to a wide group of organizations. But know that each installation is unique in that we can replicate your organizational structure and things. So my point here is just because it's configured one way today doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't be able to work for your organization, and so we can have a conversation. You can have a conversation with your ASG representatives as well if you'd like to learn more about that. So again, demonstration data out here, so we're doing our best. So the HRMS core part of the system, we've got our tabs here related to employee information here. So demographic information, name, address, phone number. I can link in digital photographs of my employees if I would like as well. Looking at several different dates here for original hire date, a last rehire, and we can do some adjusted seniority. We also, we're going to address this a little bit later, but we're able to have some flexibility here in the time off management component of the system, because sometimes we've got employees who perhaps have negotiated more generous time off plans and things like that. So in a little bit we'll talk about what this time off service date could mean. When I talked about capturing all of the information on a new hire and making sure we had information on those employees, it really starts with that onboarding packet. So we can easily identify if we've got the necessary documents for this employee. So here I'm just recording that, yes, I've confirmed their I-9 status, and listing the documents out here, what type of work authorization and the documents used to complete that. Now, where we see date fields here, we can run alerts off of that. So alerts can notify us or other individuals in our organization of things that need attention. I liken it to having an HR payroll assistant 24/7. So instead of running a report, which you can certainly do, we've got a report out there to run, you know, show me anyone who's got a visa with an expiration date coming up, or if we need to re-verify the Form I-9 on anyone. But alerts kind of automates that a little bit more. That's an additional module, but it can send us email alerts to the HR team, perhaps even out to the employee or the supervisor, that we need to get this information re-verified, and it could impact that employee's ability to continue to work for us. We also track information applicable to our VETS 100 reporting here as well, and we've got some user-defined fields out here. But all of these tabs here really relate to the individual employee, and this gives us an opportunity to track information specific to them. Now the system is very unique in that in a very easy way we can add additional screens to the system. We can start tracking data that is important to us. So where we have, pretty generic stuff here, events, we might use these for some sort of license renewals or certification renewals if we're not running the training module. Employee notes we might utilize as to track disciplinary actions, grievances, etc. Do some attachments to the employee records, our emergency contact information. We're going to look at our job and history information here. It's pretty important to know that we can keep the complete employment history on an individual. So rather than just have the hire date, a termination date, and a rehire date, which we have in the Timberline payroll, we're also able to look at this historically. So if I terminated or laid this employee off and then rehired, it would continue to build on this employment record in the complete job history. So I can go back and look at this information and see exactly where he was with our group at this point in time, as well as having this information available on some of our reporting options, say a work history or a performance appraisal, things like that. When they talked about having a home for and creating new panels or in the system and tracking details that are important to your organization, I want to show you just a couple examples of that. So the first example I'm going to show you is an example of having tracking a company vehicle to an employee. We're able to not only create new fields in the database. Until we created this, we didn't have car, make, and model in there, but I'm also able to use tables in these custom detail screens so that I can get data validation out there and just have nice drop-down pick lists for us to use. So this is an example of an employee having a 1-to-1 ratio. Each employee could potentially have one company car. The next item I wanted to show you as far as being able to really make the system your own and track things that are important to you would be to look at a multiple record screen. So here I'm going to look at company property that we've assigned to an employee. So here Hugh has a cell phone we checked out for him, and if I open up that record, I can see, again, we're using drop downs here to talk about the type of property. And why that data validation is important is now I can run a report. Now I'm sure to get everyone who's got a piece of company property that is a cell phone, rather than letting people type free form into the field, having some people type cell, the next person cell phone, and the next person phone. We're keeping our data very clean in that way. Okay. I can also, with the ability to configure the system, make it required to visit the screen on a termination so that we're sure to collect all of the company property that we've assigned to this employee. So if I wanted to add another record, again, he had a cell phone, but maybe we've got a key card or key to the building, things of that nature. I've also pulled over in this custom detail that I'm looking at existing information, so where he is in our organization, who the supervisor is, things of that nature. So we can create all new fields in these custom panels, or we can also bring over information that already exists somewhere in the system and review that information. That was just kind of a quick tour here into our employee information. We're going to look in greater detail at some of this additional information here in a moment. So the next area I wanted to talk about is compliance reporting. So if you're over 100 employees, you should be doing the EEO reporting come August, be able to do that. Or if you've got common ownership and you're under that, over that 100. If you're doing any federal government contracts, you may be required to do the VETS 100 reporting, things of that nature. And the EEO information is actually made up of a couple different components. So one we just looked at in that employee detail screen. I'm going to go ahead and come back over here and look at this. So here in the personnel screen, I'm collecting information on the employee that is specific to their job or occupation. So a little bit of nomenclature here. In Timberline, we call it their employee's occupation, and a job refers to maybe a project that you're doing. In the HRMS component, a job is the employee's occupation that they're doing. So here I'm collecting the information for the employee portion, their age, ethnicity, gender, etc., if they've decided to voluntarily report that information. And when I look at the setup area of the system, things that are unique to you as an employer would be your job codes. And this is where we collect all of the information that is specific for the job that they're doing for the EEO reporting. So once we say, you know, is this an exempt position? Is it overtime eligible? You know, what EEO classification should it go into? Things of that nature. That is getting that employer portion there, and then once we assign the employee their specific occupation or job in the system, we're able to then you know, do all of our EEO reporting out here. So we've got this directly from the system to grab this information, as well as, again, if you're a federal government contractor and you need to do the VETS 100 reporting, we collect that information and then have these compliance reports all ready for you. Likewise, on the OSHA reports, one of the beauties of tracking this information in the HRMS system versus the workbooks that you can get, the Excel workbooks that you can get directly from OSHA, is that I'm able to associate this with an employee, and I can you know, learn a few things about that. So I've got the everything that we've collected on this particular accident, whether it's reportable, etc., and I collect all of this information that enables me to do the report. But it also allows me to be able to report over years and look at information that perhaps we've gotten, we see some trends out here that we've got an employee who maybe has had multiple accidents. I actually did have a employer one time notice that one of their employees had an OSHA accident right before 4th of July weekend 3 years in a row. So when we're tracking it in individual workbooks that OSHA provides us, it's hard to spot those kind of trends and be able to report over multiple years and do some comparison or analysis regarding that information and how maybe our safety training programs, etc., are effective or not out there. Okay. So the next area I wanted to talk about is the managing of benefits. So we can have in our payroll, in Timberline payroll, we can have the employee contribution amount or deduction, and we can also have the fringe amount. It makes it a little bit hard when you know, we can run a report and see who all has that deduction, etc. But it makes it hard to really put together information for things like, you know, if we've got a report, maybe that's a function of wage or something like that, you're probably maybe keeping a spreadsheet to reconcile to your insurance bills like that. You also may have benefits that are a function of the employee's wage, like a long-term disability, where maybe the benefit and or the premium is a function of that wage. And so having the HRMS component really leverages this strength of the system, being able to write a plan and use it. I've also talked to a lot of groups that may be running separate companies. Those may be separate EINs, Federal Employer Identification Numbers, or perhaps they share the same EIN, but they've got their install for Timberline separated out into multiple companies. Well, within the HRMS component, we're able to run information across multiple employers. So if you've got set up as different EINs, et cetera, or we can also look then into that information as it relates to maybe enrollment by a particular company as well. So I wanted to show you over in the setup area talking about these plans, just give a little peek in here to one of these plans. So we've got several plans set up in the system today. I want to look at a life insurance plan that I've got set up. So I've determined whether it's continuable under COBRA, et cetera. We can help manage reporting for COBRA as well and track COBRA enrollments in the system as well. For the coverage here, we've written that as an expression that's taking the employee's annualized salary rounded to the nearest thousand times 2, or $50,000. So it's the maximum of that. And so as we give wage increases, et cetera, the system's going to do this calculation for us and know that Kelly Jo got a wage increase, and so that's increased her life insurance coverage, and that's also increased her premium amount as well. So when perhaps we go out to market next year, maybe we're keeping our same plan, but we have new rates, we're able to update the rates in the system under the insurance plan one time and have that flow out into all of the employee records. Likewise, if you're in a situation where you're interested in exploring online benefits enrollment or things of that nature, we're able to have the system do those kind of things through a self-service portal, and again, then come back in and update the HRMS database, and then with our transfer of information over to payroll, we can send over new changes in deduction amounts as well as changes in those employer fringes out there. So that's pretty powerful. You can set up all different kinds of plans, and then what happens is we enroll only the employees that enroll in the plan in those particular benefits. And so I've been on this demonstration system a long time. I had a lot of benefits set up. So now I'm just showing current plans for this employee. So when we look at his life insurance coverage, it's done the math for us. Likewise, when we look at a health insurance plan, we can see if he is got his dependents enrolled here. So we've got 3 dependents, and all 3 of them happen to be covered under the plan. In the integration piece, we can, we've written this plan as a monthly plan, so I'm able to do a report and reconcile that to our insurance bill. But when we send that over to payroll, in the integration piece, I'm able to make some conversions out there. So an example may be that I have a weekly payroll. I've got this information in a monthly format. You may have a policy that says we only take the deduction 48 times a year. So those 4 other months that we have a 5th payroll of the month, maybe we give them a holiday from that deduction. So in that case, in the conversion, we would say take this premium amount or the contribution amount, multiply it by 12, divide it by the number of pay periods we're going to take that in. So that's all fine and well here, and with our reporting on benefits, again, we've got the ability to run reports on who's enrolled in a particular plan. One of my absolute favorites would be the dreaded census report. So usually groups that don't have an HR component, that really just sends people into depression. That's the precursor to open enrollment depression. That is creating that census report for your broker. So directly from the system, we're able to run a report out here and talk about what type of benefits our employees have, or excuse me, what our employees' information is. And if I don't want to give out all of this information, I'm able to export the information into, say, an Excel file, and I can go ahead and create this census file in a report. So I'm going to go ahead and export that out there. And now when I look at my data, I've got, let me hide this real quick, I've got the ability to make some changes to that census report, and I can, you know, sometimes these reports come out with more information on it than they're showing. So what I might do is parse out the Social Security number and just show the last couple digits, etc. But really that easily we got that census report out of the system. Okay. Likewise, we can manage our savings plans, 401k plans, flexible spending accounts, things like that. The next area that I wanted to talk about where we've seen difficulty has been in managing time off plans. So sometimes the Timberline payroll handles the accruals just fine, but oftentimes I hear from employers, they may have multiple plans out there that, depending on which type of employee you are, or if you're grandfathered in, you may have multiple plans out there, or you may have some complexity in your seniority tiers, and maybe you do limitations in carryover amounts, and so that could be something that you're having to manage each payroll out there, or maybe you need to, in the example of an employee who's maybe negotiated a better way to a better, more generous vacation plan. So maybe I hire in, and part of my negotiation is, instead of starting out with 2 weeks paid vacation, maybe I've worked it so I want to do 3 weeks. Well, when we are utilizing the SAGE time off management component, the SAGE HRMS time off management, we're able to really get very specific in what we want to do out there. Excuse me, I went to the wrong area. I wanted to look at the setup really quick. So in the time off area, in our attendance plans, again, I can have multiple plans out here, so I've got different vacation plans for hourly or salaried individuals, and I'm also able to utilize these different seniority tiers and have maximum availables per seniority tier and maximum carryover. Now I can pass this back and forth over to Timberline so that we can show that on a pay advice, or if we're looking at an environment where we want to have some self-service capabilities, we're able to do and show those to employees and managers in the manager self-service, where they're able to look at their individual employees' balances out there. So when I'll go over now to my employee here, Hugh, his summary, so I can see he's got a couple different plans. In this company, I perhaps am tracking holidays via a plan. They may have to work on a holiday, and I may let them carry that over. But I can look into his plan, and on an individual basis, I can you know, decide which date we're going to use for that, as far as their eligibility or seniority tiers in there and things like that. Likewise, I think some of the other issues that I hear from Timberline users is that it's not always easy to report out to employees. Someone may come to your office, and I used to have an employee who would come right before her vacation rolled each year, and she would say, you know, I think you did something wrong. I think that I should have more vacation than you're showing me. So I might come out here and I might find her as an individual, and I'll find Hugh again and use him. And I can come out here and look at the time period I want to do my transactions for. And I'm going to go way back here so that I pull up some stuff, transactions here. I can also right-click in any date field, and that'll bring up a calendar out there. And I can print comments on this. So I'm now able to run this report on an individual. I've gone back that time frame. So in the case of that employee in my office, I could very easily print this information and say, here's what we show. And invariably she would say, oh, wait, I forgot I went, in February I went back to Iowa to visit my sister. So really easy to get that information back out of the system. Okay, the next area that I wanted to talk about was training tracking. So this really seems to be an issue and something that a lot of employers are struggling with. Sometimes we're using other little ancillary products, such as maybe a little J.J. Keller program or something like that. Or a lot of times we've got these spreadsheets that aren't necessarily updated. We've got turnover. Did we get everything recorded from the last training that they went to? It may be just basic HR-related type of stuff. Did they, have they sat through our discrimination, harassment prevention training? Or it could go down to very big detail on various safety trainings out there. So when I look in the system now, I want to let you know that there are often many different ways to accomplish things in the SAGE HRMS system. And depending on your individual requirements, we might make a recommendation one way or another. When we were doing just a brief tour through some of these screens earlier, I indicated that sometimes we'll track things like licenses, etc. I might also, if it's really a small number of trainings that I'm trying to track, I might also do some sort of training tracking here. So I might, have some sort of safety training that I had them complete, and it can be very generic. If we're going to train it in this, track it this way, I'd want to be very specific. I took the fall prevention class, etc. And we can document when they took this course. So let's say they took it today, and let's say it's a particular course that needs to be renewed next year. So I can set up a date and indicate that this needs to be renewed next year. So that's certainly one way to do it. That would require going into the individual's screens and tracking that information that way. Another way that we can track training information is sometimes it makes sense to do it via a custom record, custom detail record. So I might have, in fact, a library of courses that we train on, and I may need to be real specific which course they took and the date out there. So again, I could certainly do it this way. The caveat to that would be needing to go into the individual's record, update this information. So that's another way to handle it. However, if you're an employer that really has a great deal of training to be tracking and you do a lot of this training internally, a better method to track that, in fact, might be the specific training module. And how that works is we establish a library of courses that you would train, that you're doing training from. We would go in and be able to make establish our job requirements. So here I've established some training requirements for this particular company, these individual courses that I want all employees to take, okay? So I might also have set up under a specific employee's job code some specific training that them as the AP Clerk 1 needs to make sure that they've got the advanced Excel course out here. Okay? So we can make these requirements, establish these job requirements. One of the beauties of doing it this way is individuals in your organization are promoted or moved to different jobs. The system goes out and looks at what are the requirements for this job, and then it also looks at what training has this employee already had. And then we'll make the recommendations and the required courses out there for them. So there's individual courses we can track that way. Training programs are a group of specific courses to be done, and in this instance, certifications are trainings that have renewal on a periodic basis out there. So once we've established those particular requirements out there, we could then, we would go in, and I'll just show you a training record here for an employee. So we'll go back to my default man here, Hugh. And I see that he's got this interviewing course he needs to take. That's a 16-hour course. He's also up for a renewal. He's already completed the discrimination, harassment, prevention course, or needs to complete it by this date, etc. And I can also look at the full library of trainings that he has taken out there, and of course be able to report on all those. So one of the benefits of this module is being able to establish those job requirements, then go out and open a class, enroll the employees in it. And again, this may happen at, you may grab the employee list that you need to have. We can have a roster for the course, and then after it's completed, we can come in and close the class and update multiple employees' records at one time. So again, it would just depend on really what your organization's, how many courses you're training, and how you want to manage that. Okay. The next item on my list here was reporting and workforce analysis. So, this is a big issue for employers. You may have your Timberline payroll customized where you're using a lot of, user to custom fields in the miscellaneous screen to track information out there. But being able to get information out in a usable format easily is really critical. So here's some different categories out here that I've identified. Let's go ahead and go back into the system. So we've seen we've got a place for everything out there. Now when it comes to the reporting area, I have really just a slew of different reports out there. Everything from a ranked salary list. Now these are my standard reports. They are very static in the data I can put on the report, meaning that it's already formatted out a specific way. So here I can come in and look at my particular one employer. So the information on the report is very static, but what I can do is I can drill down and look at specific groups of my employees. So I may just want to look at everyone in my engineering division. I could do it that way, a specific department or a location. Or earlier I selected that report and ran it for an individual employee. Maybe I have, maybe I'm doing some sort of government contract, or we're having an audit and they want information on various employees that don't really share a specific department, location, or things like that. I can also come out here and just select a specific group of employees to add on the report, and now it's going to give me my ranked salary list based just on these particular employees, okay, versus running the ranked salary list now for everyone in this company is going to give me this information out here. Okay, so real static in the columns that I can have on here. So what do we do for you as an employer that maybe any of these standardized reports that are out here aren't really what you're looking for, right? So you've got a specific data you want to take over, or you're utilizing some of those custom detail screens out there. We've also got another level of reporting within the core system, and that is called the secure query. And the secure query allows us to report on specific information to this, and it looks like I may have security locked myself out of that. Let me just log back into someone else. The secure query allows us to write a custom report in 5 steps, and it uses field names as opposed to database field names. So it's very easy to write a report and select the different fields that I want. And in that example where we've created a custom detail panel, Sage didn't know we were going to do that when we bought our system. So now I'm able to grab that information maybe on company property or company cars, etc., and very easily now write a secure report with the secure query that has the information on it that I need. So this is an example here. I'm just going to show you this, that it's 5 steps. I go out and select my fields, and again, all of the fields in the HRMS database are open for that. Do some basic grouping of records, doing some sorting if I want some filters here. I'm getting employees with employee status of A or L, active or leave of absence. And then I can decide how to output that report. So next month when I need this information again, I'm able to run this report again. I can make these available to other users within the core system, or I can make it available to myself and specific individuals out there, or just myself as the login that created it. The last level of reporting that comes with the core system is Crystal Reports. We've got a couple licenses of Crystal Reports that come with the system, and already created in Crystal for you are some 60 different HR reports. They are at times very similar to the standard reports that are out there in the standard reports catalog, but unlike those where you can't add or subtract fields to them, or maybe do some summing of fields or things of that nature, we're able to do that in the Crystal reports. And I'm not sure what's taking so long here today. So again, about 60 of those reports are already done up in Crystal. And if you've used Crystal Reports, it can be a little bit intimidating, but once you know the database structure out there, and I think with the last couple releases with their report writing wizard that they have, I think it's much easier to write a report. When I used the system, I considered myself, or would like to call myself, the queen of save as. I would find a standard report out there that had the basic information that I needed on it. I would save it as a different name in a custom reports folder out in the network drive within the system. And I would make my changes out there. So here's this example of these some 60 reports that are already done up in Crystal, ready to be able to be used for us. So in the example maybe of the birthday list out here, I'll just open up that one. I can go ahead and show you what that would look like with the results out here. So now I've got a nice little birthday list. I can pull the date off it. The standard report list, the standard reports in the core system does not have the year in there, so I could make these manipulations. But in the design phase, for some groups, that's a little intimidating, but I could, again, add some additional fields in there as needed. Okay? So it's a little bit about reports. Again, 3 levels, dozens and dozens of our standard reports broken out by different categories, such as our benefits reports, wellness reports, OSHA reports, etc. And then our secure query, where we're developing the reports ourselves, and then the Crystal reports as well. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, that was actually, I think, the that was my 6th point here. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, discuss with you today, is really how the data flows around and how that can work. So we've looked at these top 6 areas. The first component, of course, there's like 4 different components to the integration. You don't need, only one of them is required. The other are options out there. So the first one would be, that is, taking our information from the HRMS. This becomes our data entry point, whether we as HR or admin professionals are entering this information, or even if we're using some self-service capabilities in allowing employees to make some changes to their data. The information is created or is stored in the HRMS, and then we send that over to the CRE payroll. We can do this on a daily basis. We can do it right before payroll's processed, but we're taking over demographic information, name, address, phone number stuff, current rate of pay, current job or occupation, any benefit-related amounts for deductions, those employer fringes amount. We can also take in some data that you may be storing in the other fields in there, maybe regarding workers' comp or things of that nature. The next component out there, if you choose to utilize the Sage HRMS time-off capabilities out there, would be the attendance transactions. So this actually is showing an arrow going one way, but it really goes both ways. So before processing, we can include this data to make sure that the payroll has the most current information on it. If they've taken any leave, it could decrement that bank, and then maybe we've got that showing on our pay advices or paychecks in Timberline. After those transactions and payroll's been processed, we can bring that information back into the system, so those actual days they took off that information. The next component is, if you are interested in self-service, is really being able to show our pay advices, which copies of direct deposits or copies of paychecks, in the self-service portal. So if you are a very lean organization and is very time-consuming, a lot of construction and real estate run weekly payrolls, the amount of time spent stuffing direct deposit advices and the cost for mailing them or doing inter-organizational couriers, things like that, very time-consuming. So if you want to have that information come back into a self-service portal, we've now got a way to show that employee their pay advice. We could also allow them to make changes to the system out there, view their time off balances and things of that nature. The self-service also has a manager self-service component built in, and managers have the ability to see specific information on their employees. Obviously, we're not going to show a manager the employee's actual paycheck. That doesn't happen. But we want to be able to show them maybe wage changes, employment history through there, and also those time off balances. And we've got a really cool time off calendar in there. That last component is a method for us to do data conversion, and it is a one-time feed from the Timberline payroll to populate the basic information on the employees. So as a general rule, we just run that one time. Part of that reason is that the HRMS has the ability to create these very detailed employment history records on there, and so we have specific data that needs to be completed and gets updated when these changes are made to create those history records. So that's why we want to use the HRMS system as our driver to send things to payroll. I've also found that a lot of organizations really like that separation of duties where the person paying them is not necessarily the person adding the wage changes, etc. So maybe we've got an HR professional there, they're processing any promotions, wage changes, things like that, but it then is sent over to payroll to be updated that way. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. I didn't know if